Sirens have sounded once again in Tel Aviv as the full ramifications of Donald Trump's strikes on Iran continue to be felt across the region. The IDF says a fresh wave of missiles have been launched by Iran towards Israel. Iran and Israel have traded missiles ever since the US conducted those strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. The B-2 bombers used in the attacks have now landed back home. President Trump is warning Iran not to retaliate against the US, saying any future strikes will use even greater force.
They attacked in the dead of night. These pictures from Isfahan capture the sight and sound of the US assault on Iranian nuclear sites. It was the biggest decision of Donald Trump's presidency so far, and his biggest gamble. They called it Operation Midnight Hammer, as seen in the Situation Room. This was how it looked on Saturday night. This was how it sounded on Sunday morning in a Pentagon briefing.
It was an incredible and overwhelming success. The order we received from our commander-in-chief was focused, it was powerful, and it was clear. We devastated the Iranian nuclear program.
New details revealed a US deception plan that had sent B-2 bombers flying west as decoys, while the B-2s involved flew east towards Iran, with bunker buster bombs primed and ready. As the president made a Saturday night return to the White House, 7 B-2 bombers had Iranian nuclear facilities in their sights. They included Fordo. It's believed to be Iran's main nuclear enrichment site, deep underneath a mountain. MOP bombs, massive ordnance penetrators, were deployed here. Other locations were hit at Naranz and Isfahan. US nuclear submarines fired Tomahawk missiles.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
The president spoke of total obliteration. His top military man revised that downwards, pending full damage assessment.
All 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction. More than 125 U.S. aircraft participated in this mission, including B-2 stealth bombers, multiple flights of 4th and 5th generation fighters, dozens and dozens of air refueling tankers, a guided missile submarine, and a full array of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft.
After the strike, the Americans said this was about peace and ending Iran's ambitions to build a nuclear bomb. Nothing more.
But our view has been very clear that we don't want a regime change. We do not want to protract this or build this out any more than it's already been built out. We want to end their nuclear program, and then we want to talk to the Iranians about a long-term settlement here.
While the Trump administration urged Iran back to the negotiating table, Iran's foreign minister said the door on diplomacy had closed.
The warmongering and lawless administration in Washington is solely and fully responsible for the dangerous consequences and far-reaching implications of its act of aggression.
After the American attack, strikes continued in Iran through Sunday, conducted by Israel. Its prime minister emboldened by a US ally joining the fight.
His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace.
This is a conflict with many moving parts, moving civilians to fear for the future.
Neither party are telling the truth about whether there has been contamination as a result of the strike. The task is not to allow this region to turn into another Chernobyl. I think the war is going to expand, even though people here in Tehran say it is going to end. I think the government may close the Strait of Hormuz.
Attacking Iran is an intervention by an American president with unpredictable consequences. The US says it's in touch with Tehran, privately and publicly, giving it every opportunity to come to the table for talks and for peace. If this momentous decision has been criticised internationally, it has been domestically too. Many in the MAGA movement, which put Donald Trump in power, are unhappy at his engagement in a foreign conflict. Many in Congress are unhappy that he didn't inform them first. A world that waited for America to strike now waits for Iran to strike back. The United States has spoken of an attack of precision and certainty. Neither applies to what comes next.
Australia has confirmed it supports the US strikes on Iran, but won't say when or how it learned of the attack. Political correspondent Cam Redden is live with me in the studio. Cam, the government now adding its voice to the global calls for de-escalation and dialogue, but importantly, as you've been reporting today, expressing its support for the US action.
Yeah, and the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, has been leading much of this response from the government this morning, Kieran, stressing that in her view and in the view of the government, Australia is not a central player in this, is not knee-deep in its involvement, but wanted to be clear in its support for the US action. And using that word this morning, Penny Wong, that Australia supports that decision to strike the 3 nuclear facilities in Iran. She went on to elaborate that it's her view Australia's role in this conflict more broadly at this stage is simply to add its voice to the growing calls from leaders around the world, in France, in Canada, in other places, for the next step to be dialogue and diplomacy and negotiation, for Iran to come to the table and for a peace deal to be settled. The Foreign Minister not elaborating, though, on whether Australia was given prior notice of this strike being carried out or exactly when and how Australia was notified. It came out overnight via an interview done by the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer that the United Kingdom was given advance notice. He says that was important as a close ally. It's been noted today, including by Mike Pizzullo, the former Secretary of Home Affairs in Australia, that perhaps the reason the UK was so explicitly warned this was coming is because they have had warships in the region and that there may have needed to be some involvement should they have required the US aircraft additional refuelling or something along those lines of additional help. But the Foreign Minister this morning outlining the government's position that it is very much supportive of this action from Donald Trump and the United States.
Australia has been clear, along with the international community, that Iran cannot be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon. We support action to prevent that from occurring, and this is what this is.
Did Australia receive any advance notice that the US would be taking this action, and what role could Australia play in the de-escalation process aside from public advocacy as you are today?
Well, the US has made clear this was unilateral action taken by the United States. What I would say is we're not a central player.
In relation to the UK, we were not involved in the attack. We were given due notice, as we would expect as close allies to the US.
The opposition is backing the government in on that front, suggesting that because Australia is not a central player, that it is not unreasonable that the United Kingdom may have received a greater heads up or been somewhat more closely informed onto the exact nature of these strikes before they were carried out, as opposed to someone like Australia. Andrew Hastie leading the coalition's response today.
The Secretary of Defence, Pete Hegseth, made it very clear yesterday this was a very, very tightly held operation. Very few people in Washington, D.C. were briefed, let alone allies. So that was the reason behind the success of the operation, I think. So I think we can just take it as it appears on the face of it.
We do wait to hear from the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, Kieran. We can also just show our viewers these pictures which have just come into the newsroom in the last hour or so from DFAT. Australians starting to make their way out of Iran. At least 2,900 have asked for assistance. These images are from the border between Iran and Azerbaijan, where some of those officials are now helping Australians get out. But naturally, with the airspace closed, still a very difficult and precarious situation.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the Prime Minister has convened the National Security Committee of Cabinet. That's been meeting this morning. He's going to hold a news conference during Newsday. So as soon as we get it, we'll bring it to our viewers live as it happens. Cameron, thank you.